I grew the business. I was making a couple $1,000,000 a year, and I was in my 30s. I was driving this Mercedes down from our big, beautiful house up in the valley next to Kim Kardashian and Ozzy Osbourne. And that became the turning point for the self-sabotaging. So I began to make every possible wrong decision you can imagine. Went belly up, lost the plane, lost the condo in Mammoth, almost lost the wife, kids, and house, lost the business. And then I remember thinking to myself, man, was I just lucky? One thing I've noticed is most people who become somewhat successful will suffer from the Midas touch. Midas touch was, you remember this mythical character of everything he touched turned to gold. This is how I went bankrupt the first time. The role of the CEO has 4 pieces: mindset, strategy, team, and sales. That's your role. There are these hidden principles that allow us to grow exponentially with less effort and more joy and no stress. But most of us are afraid to take that step because we think we're going to fall down.
All right, we're rolling. We've been talking for 10, 15 minutes already, but we just decided to hit record. So what's up, Marx?
What's kind of big? And the funny thing is, the best thing we could have ever discussed was not recorded.
I know. It's always the way it works, man. But pick up where you left off, Midas touch.
Yeah. So, I mean, they'll have to kind of reach out to you to find out what the hell did he say that changed your life and made you a lot more money that wasn't recorded. So, the one thing I've noticed is most people who become somewhat successful will suffer from the Midas touch. Midas touch was, you remember this mythical character of everything he touched turned to gold. And so what happens, it happened to me, this is how I went bankrupt the first time, or the only time, thank God. At age 38, I had already made $10 million and was doing great. And, I thought it was a big swinging, what. And so, I know business, I'm really good. I've got a lot of money. And so you start to make investments or decisions with this false narrative that, of course, you can make money in this niche. Well, therefore, you can make money in every niche. If I know how to lift from my chest, I can lift from my legs and I can do, but it's not like that in business. And so you start to diversify in these things that you think you can make money on, and you ultimately end up losing your shirt on and having problems. So, I've seen it with billionaires. I have a lot of clients who are billionaires, and they suffer from it no different than those who are just kind of somewhat successful. And the challenge becomes, when are you applying the false narrative of the Midas touch, which could go with, the sunk cost fallacy, but meaning, when are you thinking that you're going to succeed at this when in reality it's out of your wheelhouse, right? It's not your 20% spike. And when is it? And the way to solve that is to think in your business in terms of all roads lead to Rome. Do you remember Rome? And like Rome has all these different, or used to, all these different roads. And no matter where you were in the world, you could end up getting to Rome. So if you have a business and you're diversifying, everything you do must go back to the core business for you. If it's not related to that, you got to divest from it. Otherwise, you will get in a lot of trouble. For example, Keto Brick. That is your core business, right?
Yeah, that's definitely where the majority of the revenue comes from, for sure.
Right. So does then everything you do lead back to the Keto Brick?
Yeah, I mean, it all in Keto Brick is kind of answering the bigger question of like nutrition and lifestyle, and everything that I'm doing leads back to that, foundation. So in that sense, for sure.
Okay. So I tend to have, and most of my athletic training came from martial arts, right? That's kind of where I sort of sharpened my teeth, if you would. And there's a saying, and I don't know if Bruce Lee made it up or if I made it in my head, that says truth is found in combat. And I trained with a guy named Daniel DeSanto, who was Bruce Lee's best friend and protege. And we didn't have belts, and we just basically sparred. We were all there to learn how to fight. And then, I don't care if you have 10 years experience and one guy's got 1 year. The guy with 1 year might still kick your ass. It just means that you have 1 year repeated 10 times over. You didn't get any better. So, and I think business is like that. So is bodybuilding. So is any sport. Truth is found in combat. And I say that as a precursor to apologize in advance for some things I might say that might ruffle your feathers or your audience's feathers. I don't mean to be rude or confrontational. I just mean to find the truth, and sometimes it's found in combat. I don't think that that's your purpose on Keto Brick. I think you're saying that the person that sells a drill is selling a drill. They're not selling a drill. If somebody sells a drill, what are they really selling?
Oh,
that's exactly right. So the Keto Brick isn't what you think it is. What's the Keto Brick really doing?
What do I think it's really doing?
No, what do you think it's really doing? What is it really doing? I mean, I consume it. I love that fucking thing.
Well, what do you think it's doing as a consumer then? Because I'm going to be
Uh,
biased as the owner.
no. Well, yes, you will be biased, but what is it doing? You have thousands and thousands of customers. What's it really doing?
It's solving a problem for quality, convenient nutrition. I mean, quality, convenient nutrition. Like that's the main thing it's solving, especially when people are inundated with that noise in the marketplace. So to have a one-stop shop where they can check that box and just remove the decision fatigue associated with finding the food they need, that is all answered by the keto brick.
That is true, but that's not what it's solving. And by the way, the name of my company used to be One Stop Shop, which is kind of ironic.
Nice.
So that's not, I mean, that is what it does. There's no doubt about it. It's a great nutrition. All those things you said is very true. But that's like saying that a drill is to make a hole. A drill isn't to make a hole. What's a drill for?
All right. So the keto brick is then for health. It's to change your health for the
You're
better.
getting closer. So what is it really doing? So I'm not a bodybuilder. I go to the gym, I lift, but I have different outcomes than somebody who like you wants to be, on stage and dedicates the hard work and stuff for it. And we both consume keto bricks. So we're not the same, but we have the same outcome in mind, which is what?
Better health, better body, better physique, look good naked.
That's exactly right. It's the outcome of how we feel and look. I mean, it is that simple, right? So the keto break is a tool to help you look and feel the best, whatever that may be for you. For you right now, you might be bulking, you might be cutting, who knows what phase you're in, but or your clients are in, or what I'm doing it for. But we all have this thing in common. We want to look good. We want to be healthy. In fact, you did a video, I think it came out a day or two ago, or maybe yesterday, about the sugar diet.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday.
And okay, and I mean, it's great. But boy, the fact that you have to come out and spend 45 minutes talking about, as gentle and as loving and as kind as you are, about the sugar diet, which there's nobody in the right mind who has both optimal health and body composition at hand ever going to do the sugar diet. I don't give a who it is. I mean, like there's I don't care what you say, buddy. There's zero chance that it's healthy. You might have shocked the system, invoked a Randall cycle, be so active that you can't store sugar into fat. You're going to get lean and your metabolic rate's going to increase, which may not be a good thing, by the way, and to some extent, because you may be riding a red line for too long. You may get certain outcomes that hit that body composition, but there's no way on God's earth you can tell me it's for optimal health. I don't care what anybody says. There's just no way. I'm a
I
type
agree.
1 diabetic, right? Okay. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have a CGM on me all the time. Do you know what would happen to me if I went and did the sugar diet? I'd end up DKA. I mean, it was just, it would be, never mind the brain. And, you look at Georgia Eads' book, right? Change your mind, change your diet, change your mind. I mean, think about all the mental illness that's occurred because of blood-brain barrier injury. I mean, we could talk about this ad nauseum. So that does not fit your ethos as the keto break.
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's like somebody saying, yeah, I want to get body composition, so I'm going to do steroids. Okay, cool. But yet we look at long-term benefits of people who do steroids long-term. It's a bad gig. It ain't bueno. It's really, enlarged heart, the small test, you name it, right? So you get the body composition, but you don't get optimal health. Keto break solves those two things. That's why we consume it. We want great body composition and optimal health. That's it. Anything that you then put into your industry or your business should promote those two pieces.
Yeah.
And story. That's all roads lead to Rome.
I can 100% confidently say that is the case for the different things I'm working on for sure. So that's good.
Correct. If that's true, then the only thing you have to worry about or focus on is what impact does the new product and or service apply to optimal health and body composition? Because if we look at, not everything will have equal respect, right? In other words, you might try a new product that has marginal effect on body composition, but really the effect on optimal health, or maybe backwards. A little optimal health, but much greater in body composition. But when you hit the mother load, i.e. the keto brick, and you get both, that will give you a higher profitability and longer longevity and greater client retention than anything else. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do all the other things. It's, hey, what thing can we now create that gives us both of those components?
Yeah, 100%.
which is where we talk about the sigmoid curve earlier, which is the sigmoid curve comes in. Which, every business will struggle with the sigmoid curve. The minute you peak, if you don't add something new, it can be a new flavor, it can be a new product line, it can be a new ingredient, whatever the case may be. If you don't do that, but a business will suffer, struggle, and then begin that decline. And most businesses go out of business because they either outgrow the resources or their people. And that has a lot to do with the sigmoid curve. So all that to say that I'm hoping that you expand the line beyond just keto breaks. I also would assume that you probably have some keto breaks that are infinitely less in demand or profitable than others.
Yeah,
You
there's
probably have
definitely a range on the flavors and where the popularity comes in, and it changes too. I mean, depending, like carnivore, for instance, is pretty hot right now, so that goes in well with the tallow based flavors. Like those are super popular because of the popularity of carnivore. So yeah, they kind of ebbs and flows based off the market. But yeah, 100%.
well, that becomes yes. And I know we're just kind of riffing all over the place. And the challenge now becomes that each break or flavor or body or ingredient might hit a different niche,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we call SBU, small business units. And so you might have, as you do, breaks that hit the carnivore, breaks that hit the non-carnivore, right? And so this is a trend piece of like, hey, which trend is it going? Now you can serve just one community, quote unquote, or you can begin to serve, hey, these are for these guys, these are for these guys, these are for these guys, and then separate them and target and market them differently.
Yeah, we're working on a sugar diet brick right now. I'm joking.
Yeah, I think it's called Snickers.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
so.
I think it's pretty, yeah, dude, that's absolutely, that's insane to me. That really is insane that, but hey man, finickiness. I mean, after being in this space for a while, we can start to look at what's next. And it'll pretty soon be eating cow shit. I mean, hey, eat your cow dung. And I mean, got buff. Remember the snake diet and the liver. I mean, dude, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I'm sure this is similar to you in some regard, it's like I think one of the things that I'm most proud of as a business owner, but also just as a person, is that my messaging has been consistent from the get go. Like I I don't just follow the trends, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. Like I would have a lot more popularity, a lot more clicks on some certain videos if I followed the hype. But I also get so many emails from people that really just appreciate the consistent nature of my messaging, and that may come at the cost of having some of that viral growth. But I'm proud of the fact that I'm slow and steady in a sense. There's pros and cons with that, but I'm trying to build a legacy as opposed to just a flash in the pan.
But yes, and you can have it both ways.
Yeah.
You can still be consistent and have the proper messaging. If you have persuasion and an audience and you're competent, you get rather pretty good growth. The challenge we see some people, and we'll talk about this here shortly, is that you think that it's an either or, right? I mean, look at Judy Cho. I adore her.
She's a
I
rock
mean,
star.
she is probably my favorite carnivore person out there. She has so much knowledge and she's just so congruent and her integrity is flawless. I mean, I don't know her. I've never met her, never talked to her, but I mean, she is, of all the carnivore folks out there, I don't think anybody's smarter than she is. Maybe Dr. Paul Mason. I think we talked about it last time. Love him too. He's great. But, he's a physician in Australia or New Zealand and he has sports team and he doesn't care about this space. He just wants to find the truth. But I think Judy's really just kind of, if you want carnivore, I don't think there's anybody better than her. I really don't. I think her information is incredible. And she's such a lovely human being.
She is. I've had the pleasure of meeting her on multiple occasions, and we've interacted quite a bit. And she really is as good in person, if not better, than she is online. I mean, she's like truly authentic.
Yeah, no, she's fantastic. The funny thing, I'll tell you an interesting story. So she used to work for a company called LEK as a management consultant. Well, the K stands for Koch, Richard Koch, whose book you just read, The 80-20 Principle or Daily 80-20. So Richard Koch was one of the founders of LEK decades ago. Now he sold it but he sold his thing about 25 years ago or so and then became investing, and he's averaged 22% return annual based on one thing called the STAR principle. So it's funny that she works for one of my, you know, dearest friends, and, you know, which is kind of interesting. No, but she's
Oh,
amazing.
world, man.
Isn't that crazy? It's a very small world. So she's incredible and she's highly effective, but she's not viral. And then you can talk about nutcases like, you know, Saladino or Salad in I don't know, whatever. I mean, I think he's nuts. I think he's, you know, I'm not saying that his message is bad. I think he's nuts. I think he's got some serious mental issues, and yet more famous than Judy. But you don't have to have one or the other. You could still be both. The challenge becomes in finding out the right strategy. Do you mind if we talk about strategy and what it actually is?
Hey, man, dive in, pull the curtain back.
All right, good. So, all right, so we either win or lose in business or in anything based on a strategy. So what do you, we had this discussion via email. What do you define strategy as?
I think I had it buttoned up pretty nice in that email. I've forgotten what I wrote now, though. Basically, the steps we take to reach the desired outcome. I don't know how vague you want it to be versus applying to the different listeners, but basically the steps taken to reach the desired outcome.
Okay. So there's a lot of definitions, right? And we could have a mental debate as to whether we should adopt one versus the other and what have you. So I'll give you my interpretation of what I think I've seen work in the real world when it comes to businesses or, you know, even personal athletic endeavors. So strategy is simply finding out who is the enemy and how do we win. That's really it. That's what strategy is, right? Who's the enemy? How do we win? If we look at it political, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on, you're going to think the other one's the enemy. You know, if you're over here, then the other one is the enemy. And then how do you win?
Mm-hmm.
Look at a sports team, right? Playing football, you got two teams. You know, one is the enemy versus the other. How do you win? You look at an army. You know, it doesn't matter what we look at. Businesses, it's who's the enemy and how do we win? Now, I know that you don't like to talk bad about certain people. Or at all. You're like, hey man, you know, everybody, you're like, you know, peace and love and donuts. Nothing wrong with that.
Not donuts, though.
Not that, well, you know what? Well, you know, maybe sometimes I don't know. I can't do donuts. Hell no. But and that's okay. That's you don't have to be adversarial, but there's got to be an enemy. So if you are a postural alignment therapist, the enemy is pain, right? If you're selling the keto brick, the enemy is poor nutrition, right? And lack of body composition. Or you could say the enemy is lack of information or lack of knowledge. It doesn't have to be a person. It just has to be something. There has to be an enemy, because without an enemy, we can't ask the second question, which is, how do we win?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We must ask that question. When you're competing on stage, I'm sure they're all your friends and you love them and they're good people for the most part. But who's the enemy when you go on stage?
Oh, I'm going there to tear their heads off, man. I'm going to win.
So they're the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to dislike them. You're like, hey, man, I love you, buddy. You know, we could be buddies, but as soon as we step in the ring for mixed martial arts, you know, you're out, right? Like, you don't have to dislike somebody or have an antagonistic, but you got to pick an enemy. You got to pick that's who I'm going to beat or that's what I'm going to beat. Without that, we can't ask, how do we win? Period, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a football game, if we don't know who we're fighting, it's hard to create a strategy, meaning the tactical pieces. So step one is strategy. Who's the enemy and how do we win? Now, who the enemy is will determine the steps you take to win. So be very, very judicious on who you pick as your enemy. Because if you pick the wrong enemy, you have the wrong strategy. It's very easy in sporting events, right? Very easy if, you know, you're going one team versus the other. It's that one. Mixed martial arts, you know, bodybuilding is very easy. But in business, not so easy. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. So who's the enemy of the keto brick?
Poor nutrition, lack of information. Like from a legitimate standpoint, all the other products out there that just don't check the boxes that I'm trying to check.
Right. So is it information or is it poor ingredients? Is it results?
Probably results. Yeah. Let's just go all the way down to distill it down to results.
That's exactly right. And that makes it easier because now you have hey, look, keto break gives you this result. The enemy isn't the other bars or the other nutrition. It's the lack of results you've been getting. Now you've got a significantly different enemy. which is lack of result, or whatever you want to rephrase it. So now you have elevated already yourself above this guy, that thing, this product. And that's irrelevant. They're not producing results. And results is optimal health and body composition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we have results is the name of the game. In the case, the lack of results is the enemy. Fantastic. So how do we win? And to ask that question is we have to ask another question, which is, where do we fight this battle? What's the terrain?
Terrain's online right now. All the marketing's online. All the messaging's online. It's all online. Boots on the ground.
But is it online?
I mean, for us, direct to consumer primarily. That's where people's attention is. That's where they're assimilating the information they're receiving. I mean, if we were to have a storefront or have a local presence, that'd be a different story. But for us, it's primarily online.
I'm not so sure that's true. I'm not so sure it's true. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You know, when we had our first company, our first real big company, we sold computer supplies, toner, ink, cartridges for printers. It was like selling toilet paper. Nobody gave a crap about it unless either A, you had none, or it ripped in your hands. I mean, we were like the bottom of the barrel selling business to business, the bottom of the barrel. And we had a lot of competitors, Staples, Office Depot, Corporate Express, and a bunch of scammers on the phone calling people. And we were doing okay. And I asked a question, it's like, you know, who's the enemy? And the enemy was the scum guys and the high prices, the OEMs and the bad guys. Those were sort of our enemies. So that was pretty easy. And we like, where's the terrain? And we did everything via phone and also online. But our online presence was non-existent. We sucked at it. We couldn't get someone to buy online to save our lives. So it was all phone sales. And so we kept asking the question, where's the terrain? And then it finally dawned on me. And when it dawned on me and I got this, we exploded. And the terrain was people's desk. It wasn't online and it wasn't on the phone. Now, we were great at selling and, you know, all this wonderful stuff. But the terrain, the land, the mountain we had to take was their desk. So we realized the more we have our product or message of our product on their desk, when somebody else calls and they look at their desk and they see one stop, it was one stop, all the stuff, and they got a big jar of M&Ms. Guilty, we sent 4-pack bag of M&Ms with the orders, right? Hey, look, whatever. We had M&Ms and they had the little screen cleaner and this and that and the other, and they saw our name everywhere on these cool products. They were less likely to give our competitor a shot and more likely to be loyal to us. So terrain wasn't on the phone. That was just a tool we used. It certainly wasn't online on email. It was their desk. So where is yeah, use online, I get it. But where is really the terrain for you? Where are you fighting this battle?
I guess in that sense, in people's refrigerators and pantries.
That's exactly right. So now, where's the battle really being fought?
For what's stocking those shelves.
Exactly right. So it's not online. I mean, yes, you have to do online. I mean, I'm not saying don't go online, of course, but that's just a means to the end.
Makes sense.
Right?
You got a keto brick on your desk.
I mean, I've got them all over my pantry. So and I have them outside, and I take them out of the package, I put them in a little plate, and I just munch on them throughout the day. And if I'm going to have extra protein, I don't have enough fat, you know, we all use it in a way to get their body composition and our optimal health. And I love the freaking thing. They taste delicious. I like some more than others, but to me, they're fantastic. So where do you really want to win?
Right there, easily accessible for people when they're going to grab some food.
That's right. So now, by the way, these are not easy to open, are they?
No, especially with the new packaging, man. New packaging's legit, but you definitely have to. There's a little tagline on there that says "Tear like a savage." You really have to tear.
I know, and I love that. I love that. Actually, I think it's brilliant. By the way, I think don't make the packaging weaker, because the fact is, a keto brick needs a strong package, a strong product. End of story, right? But that's where you want to win. You want to win at the cupboards on the refrigerator. So what can you now? Your brain's starting to think, right? What can you now do to win?
I mean, people are shopping for those things when they're running low on that food. So getting in their headspace when they're in the mindset to fill those grocery carts, fill those cupboards, fill those pantries, fill those refrigerators, making sure we're top of mind when they do so.
So how about a little figurine of you posing that they'll get for free if they order 24 keto bricks? Or how
Stick that in the
about,
refrigerator.
yeah, put it, right? How about a plate, a keto brick plate that they get if they order a 24 package? What can you put in my cupboard, my kitchen, my refrigerator, whatever, that reminds me either of my optimal health, my better results, my body composition, the health? What can you get me?
It's funny you mentioned. I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit. So a large part of my target demographic, you know, takes things seriously. They measure their food. So I want to have like a branded food scale. That's why every time they're using their scale, they're seeing our messaging.
I mean, I have 3 scales.
Yeah.
So that's where you're going to win the battle, right? Or how about a case where you can put you can put 24 pack in little, I think Carnival Bar has like a ammunition box or something, which I get it, not that practical, but what can you create that's really inexpensive that allows me to go, oh shoot, I got to reorder my keto brick. You want to win the war in my house. That's where you're really fighting this, right? That's where you're going to get me, not to go on my show. Oh, do I have to order more keto bricks? Oh, new flavors coming out, right? The hype. It's cool. It's wonderful. But you're going to win by reminding me of why I bought those things in the first place and being with me in my house, encouraging me for optimal health and body composition and results and ingredients, whatever. So we could brainstorm, right? You could do a survey. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of really cool stuff. But now you have a strategy is, hey, who's the enemy? Well, lack of results is the enemy. All this nonsense about eat this, eat that, nonsense, right? So that's the enemy. And that comes with information and what have you. Where are we fighting this war? In my house. It's not online. It's in my house. Okay, we get there via online and mailers. I got that, right? So, how do we win? Well, we keep making phenomenal product, and we help now the end user, the consumer, associate their end goal, their outcome with our product in their house. Now they're not just buying from me. They're not part of my, clan or whatever you want to call it. That's how we took over everybody. Once you got from us, man, we inundated you, not just with product, but with the ability for you to remember why you bought from us at the beginning. And yes, we were great at this and great at that and great at the other thing and all stuff, but you couldn't get away from being around us. And we reminded you why you bought from us. Now, did we have 100% retention rate? Of course not. But it was better than others. In fact, we outsold our competition 5-1. It took 5 of somebody else's salespeople to do what one of my guys and gals could do. And it was because we were just significantly better at it.
Yeah.
But the battle you're fighting, my friend, is not online.
All right. Well, get ready to have a figurine of me on your fridge for sure.
I'll take it. But are you now not thinking of it differently?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's super helpful.
Yeah. And so now the strategy is, who's the enemy? Well, it's lack of result or whatever you want to call it. How do we win? Well, we give great product that produces the results. And where are we fighting this battle? In the person's pantry, kitchen, desk, whatever. Yeah, merch is all cool, but merch is you want ubiquitousness and ever pervasiveness. You do not want, let me phrase that. You want ubiquitous and ever pervasiveness. And a little merch is cool, but I'm not always going to wear your hat or your T-shirt or whatever the case. But I'll always see a little figurine of you on my fridge or a magnet on the fridge, or I don't know, dude. I don't know. You can come up with 8,000 things and reward them, and people will love that stuff.
Yeah.
People want to belong to something. And you're providing a service. You're reminding me of why I'm doing this.
We're rolling out this loyalty program. We rolled it out earlier this month, but I mean, any of that stuff would be really easy to integrate into that. So I'm super excited for that opportunity because it'll just make it seamless.
And remember the sigmoid curve?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what you could do to utilize a sigmoid curve without ever creating a new keto brick?
Having some other incentive in that loyalty program or something like that.
Exactly right. The figurine limited or this or that or that or the little, and I had to use the word tchotchkes, but little reminders, little anchors, little triggers that help me along the way. When I'm like, man, I'm hungry and I'm let's say I'm cutting and I'm hungry and I see, your little figure, fuck, I can't, I'm not going to, right? Versus if you're not around, right? Oh man, I just had this or I had that, the other thing. It makes it very, very different and very interesting. And it also allows you to be more creative, have more fun. Some things will do great, some things won't do great, and makes it easier. Now let's kind of, I know we're going all over the place, but let's switch a little gears if we can about stress and business growth. How long have you had your business?
I launched Keto Savage in 2016, and then we launched Keto Brick March of 2018. So been in
So
that.
you're not a startup anymore?
No.
Okay. Very cool. So why are you stressed? You should never be stressed.
I don't know, man. I've always adding something new to the mix, and I just like it. Like this is probably totally character flaw on my part, but I am so acclimated to stress that I feel almost less comfortable when I'm not stressed, which is probably not a good, healthy thing, but that's just my reality.
No, I don't know if that's true. Let's think about this a second. So are we talking about distress or eustress?
Both. I mean, the things that stress me out are things that excite me. So that's definitely eustress categorization. But I mean, with anything that I'm doing, there's times when we have hiccups because I'm pushing the envelope, and that certainly causes distress in the moment. But I wouldn't want to live any other way. Like I wouldn't want like my biggest fear in life is complacency and mediocrity. And I feel like if I just, kick my feet up and coasted, then I would certainly be more stressed for fear of not living up to my full potential.
So two things. One is we know the difference between distress and eustress. So you already got that. That's pretty easy, right? However, the metaphor of growth equals distress is probably backwards. Growth equals no distress. And how many hours a day do you lift weights when you're training?
Hour and a half.
Okay, and how many hours in a
day? 24.
Right. So why don't you work out 24 hours a day?
Because then it'd be counterproductive.
Oh. So you're saying that stressing your body for more than 1/24th of a day is counterproductive?
Yeah.
And so why would the mind be any different?
It wouldn't be.
But yet you're behaving as if it was.
Yeah.
So sure. Interesting, right? Because I mean, you may be thinking about lifting all day long. Do you have a routine you plan out, or do you make it up as you go along? Like, how do you train?
I'm doing full body right now, but I train pretty intuitively. Like I'll do a different exercise for each body part every day I train, but I kind of go in there and train intuitively with that movement.
Great. So you just kind of, wake up or whatever you decide, it's intuition. You've been doing this forever anyway, right? So You have all that knowledge base inside your noggin. So you go, you work out. We'll say you work out for an hour and a half, right? And how much of the 24 hours are you thinking about lifting weights and working out?
Just that hour, pretty much.
Okay. And so you don't think about it. You show up. I'm here now. You focus. I assume you're not on your phone texting like all these morons at the gym.
No, not on my phone, distracted. Sometimes, like if there's a hiccup with something, but generally speaking, my phone's just there to log my lifts, and that's it.
Okay. It drives me nuts when I go to the gym, and which I do, and then these kids or people, I'm like, what? And I mean, I'm 55, right? So I started lifting a long time ago, but I was really heavy and lifting up from age 38 to 40. Had a trainer, the Stan McQuay, the whole guy, professional bodybuilder, what have you. And that did not exist. And we were at a gym called Powerhouse in Chatsworth, California. And, if we saw anybody, like, we make fun of them. They wouldn't be able to leave the gym without being roasted. People had headphones. We all wore baggy clothes. So you couldn't see, right? I mean, it was kind of, anyway, now it's a complete opposite. These fucking kids show up with sandals and on their phone. And how many sets you got? 4. And then it takes them 10 hours to do 4 sets. I want to kill them. Anyway, so yet you stress your body for 1 hour, but isn't 2 hours better?
Not in this setting. You gotta stress it out and then let the body do its thing, recover.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the mind then. So why then do we have this presupposition? Now, look, when you're starting out and you're in a business for the first 12 to 18 months, I totally get it, right? You're just figuring things out as balls to the wall, stress, distress. That's how it should be because you're learning. and you're figuring things out. Like an airplane, right? You just punch it hard, you get off the runway, but when it gets to 30,000 feet, you can't keep going at that. You'll burn out the engines, and you don't fly well. You have to pull it back to the right speed. This is exactly the same thing. So let's assume stress, distress, not all that is out of the way in the first 12 to 18 months. Okay, that's a different story. But now, why would you assume that running at the same speed that you ran to get it off the ground is what's going to get you to grow it exponentially?
Doesn't make much sense. Yeah. I've had a few external factors. I don't want to make excuses, but there's been like things seemingly outside of my control where we'll have like a system in place, a strategy, and things are humming along smoothly. And then something will come in and we'll have to just figure things out. We'll have to figure out how to adapt, survive, and grow. So those will be moments of stress for sure. But the systems that we've built that have worked, we've just continued to refine and polish those. And the things that used to stress me out no longer stress me out.
Yeah, of course. And things are going to happen. And it's not what happens, it's how you deal with it that matters.
Right.
Yet there's still no benefit in stressing over those kind of things. There really isn't. In fact, it's counterproductive. And let me give you the metaphor to help us understand why I make that statement and why it's true. So the brain has, we'll call it, three different components. You've got the reflex brain, the caveman. Fight, flight, feed, fornicate, and freeze, right? The 5 Fs. And when that part of the brain is activated, the other two parts can't function optimally. And that part's useful. When you go to the gym, you don't want the other two parts of the thinking brain and the librarian. So you've got, the reflex, which is a caveman, the thinking brain, which is Rodin, this guy, right? And the librarian, which is probably the most important piece overall. And the librarian is always working. It's called the archiving brain, or the subconscious, some people call it, right? It's always working. The thinking brain is like sort of the lifting brain. It's only good for about an hour and a half to 2 a day, max, to think. And then the caveman or cavewoman is this brain that's not thinking, it just responds, it acts. It's the emergency brain. If right now, zombies came about, right? You wouldn't sit and go, huh? And you're like, oh crap. And it's all go, 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 move. It's totally intuition. And that's its job, is to protect you. Now, when the caveman is active, the thinking man cannot perform its duties. So they are opposite. They fight with each other. The best thing to do is to make the caveman go to sleep, activate the thinking brain for a couple hours, and then send him on vacation and let the archiving brain do its job. Well, when stress shows up, what do you think gets activated?
Probably that caveman brain.
100%, right? It's danger, danger. Will Robinson, danger. And we think in some form, oh my God, and we catastrophize. My business is going to go under. I can't support my wife and kids or my husband or whatever. You just create this image of doomsday. I have no cash flow, no check, and everything just falls apart. And that uncertainty is very uncomfortable. It's like pulling the floor from underneath us. Now we're like, holy crap. And then the caveman goes, oh, and I will power through it, right? With the big stick. And we end up getting some results. And that teaches us that's good. Therefore, caveman or cavewoman, always good under stress. And what happens is caveman totally takes over all the time. Stress goes up and optimum health and body composition go down. Then we can't solve the problem efficiently, effectively. And we certainly can't let the archiving brain archive. So that's what the caveman does. Well, what does the thinking brain do? The thinking brain is one that asks the questions. How do we grow twice as fast in half the time? And in order for the thinking brain to be activated, the caveman must be taking a nap or chasing butterflies. It cannot be activated. And that's where you ask questions. And asking questions is the way we think. Ask, answer, ask better questions, think better. Different questions, think different. Thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions. In fact, if we look at the earlier part of you and I chatting about business, and we talked about, who's the enemy, right? You hadn't thought of it that way. That's a different question. We finagled and said, hey, results is what we think. Lack of results is the enemy. Okay, cool. And, how do we win? Where's the terrain? It's in their pantries. Like, you hadn't thought of that yet. The fact that you asked those questions, that we came up with those answers, immediately is going to change how you view your business, if it doesn't already. Immediately, you have taken a stratospheric change from this direction to win more, grow more, be more successful. It only took us 20 minutes, right? It's like lifting weights. It's very short. That changes the trajectory of what you want to do next. The thinking brain asks those questions. How do I? How do I get my chest to be bigger? How do I do my shoulders? That's the thinking brain. And it has a limit. It can only really think hard for an hour to two a day. After that, it's exhausted. No different than your body. I mean, you can live for a couple hours max. After that, you're just toast. You get an injury. It's a disaster, right? Every professional bodybuilder, whether natural or not, will tell you 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I mean, nobody says work out 5 hours. I mean, unless they're stupid or, God knows doing what, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the brain is no different. So that's what it does. It asks questions, but it has to be in a calm environment to ask the questions. It cannot be activated by the reflex brain. Then the archiving brain is a librarian. It's like all these books back here, right? So the librarian takes everything you've ever read, everything you've ever, listened to, heard, and it just archives it. It puts it in files all throughout your brain. Every experience when you were little to yesterday, it archives everything. And then the thinking brain goes, how do I do X and Y? And then the thinking brain goes off and hangs up by the pool or, goes to travel or whatever the case may be. And now reflex brain sleeping, thinking brain kind of, distract, having a good time. These two guys or gals are inactive. The librarian then goes, if I take this book over here and that book over there and this memory over here, and I put it together in this sequence, it'll answer his question. And then it does that. It gives it to the thinking brain. And then you're taking a shot and go, I know. I'm going to solve that problem. Oh, I know. Or, hey, what happened was you posed the question. You were not stressed, no distress. You posed the question and you let it be. It went to the archiving brain. It solved it for you, gave it back to you. You think you're a genius. Like, oh, yeah, I've solved it. That is the process of power. We are powerful not based on money. We're powerful based on ideas, competency, and communication. Those three factors: ideas, competency, and communication. Meaning, is the idea a great idea? Will it survive? Will it make an impact? Am I competent enough, or can I find who are competent enough, and can I communicate effectively? That has to happen inside your brain. It cannot happen outside your brain. It cannot happen when you've got the caveman or cavewoman infected. So your ability to be unstressed, to be properly engaged with the world is what's going to allow your business and your life to catapult to the growth. This idea that we must be stressed, push harder, work longer, because that's how we build the body, right? We think our work is like that. No. Yes, you have to work at thinking, and thinking hard is very difficult to do. In fact, most people don't think, let alone hard, right? They just respond, react, and follow the components. Our ability to think hard and then stop thinking and then go do other stuff and let the archiving brain do its job is what's going to get us truly to the next level in our business or in our lives for that matter. That's why getting rid of stress as much as you can actually increases your life and your productivity and your results over everything else.
I totally agree. I feel like I started really diving into Stoic thinking, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now. That helped me compartmentalize things and really just focus on the things that I had control over as opposed to stressing about those that I didn't. And I feel like there was a profound improvement in just my overall level of happiness and productivity after that point. So I completely agree with everything you're saying. I feel like now, at this chapter in my life, having a son and one on the way, it's like that acts as a very tangible vehicle for me to disconnect from all the things at work. Whereas before that, I mean, I would just never stop. Like I just was always on. And since it was just me, I could be selfish in that regard. Whereas now having, kids that depend on me and they don't care one iota about what's going on in the business, like I don't want to be unfair to them. So I'm forced to disconnect. And I feel like that certainly charges me in ways.
It's true. And the question you haven't asked yet which is really where the rubber meets the road is. How do we do that? Because it is nay impossible for you to be lifting weights. You get a text, hey, Robert, the tallow that we got blows. There's no way on God's earth you're able to go, okay, no problem, and then go back to lifting weights and forget about it. It now owns you.
Mm-hmm.
It owns you. It absolutely owns you. So easier said than done, which is why then we need, okay, cool. We have the understanding of how the brain works, meaning we've got these three components, right? Caveman, thinker, and archiving. We got that. We need to work on that. But how do we get the caveman not to go, because once he's turned on, dude, it's forget it. Like you just have to wait it out. Well, the way we get that done is by understanding how the brain actually works. And this is what makes, in my opinion, businesses successful and people happy. Because you can have a successful business and not be happy. And you can be happy and have a non-successful business. But we want both optimal health and body composition. We want both happiness and success. We want it all, la dolce vita. And we can have it all. Not to think so is a lie of the devil, right? It's not. We're not designed to be and or, designed to be, and sorry, not designed to be or either, but rather and.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we do that? Well, your brain and mine, and anybody else's brain, has two components. One, you cannot tell the difference between something imagined and something true. We already know this. It's overstated. Number one. Number two is the brain doesn't know the difference between buy company and buy dog food. It'll occupy the same space. So it's not that we can ignore the nuances of life or the little pieces of life and just try to focus on the big ones. Because unless we create an environment where you don't get that input, your brain has to deal with it. Example would be, one of my dear clients built a moat. We built a moat around him so that no information enters him that isn't stuff that he wants to deal with. So he doesn't deal with buy cat food or the tallow is different. Or he just deals with everything else around him is protected and they deal with it. He never finds out about it. So he's built that. But most of us, I'm not a billionaire, at least not that I know of. And so it's hard to build that moat. So the way that we deal with it is we have to do one thing, which is unfortunately not done in today's society anymore, and that's to use pen and paper. The minute you're in lifting weight and you get a text, blah, 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 you cannot leave it in your text and you cannot put it in your notes. You have to literally have a pen and paper and you write down on the pen and paper, bummer, tallow, no bueno, this one. The minute you do that, your brain goes, and it lets it go because you've captured it and it knows you've written it down and you will deal with it at some point or another. It could be, hey, we got an opportunity to buy a competitor. You write it down. Writing things down is called cognitive distribution. Writing things down allows our brain to let it go and go. It also gets us to externalize our thoughts, which gets us to disassociate with our thoughts, which stops us from catastrophizing. Now, there's more than write it down, but if you just start writing things down, the minute they show up in your brain, you will notice that your ability to calm down the caveman instantaneously, because you're then going to give it to the thinking brain, which is then going to give it to the archiving brain, happens automatically. So you can de-stress yourself like this if you just carry pen and paper with you. And every time something shows up, write it down. And I'm talking about everything down. Now, if the thought occurs to you one time and doesn't occur again, don't worry about it. It's just a fleeting thought. But if it occurs to you more than once, you got to stop and write it down. If you do that, you will then immediately begin to calm down that distress, not eustress, because eustress self-imposed, the distress, and you're going to create that distance that you need, because in order for us to solve problems and grow in business, do we need to be involved or do we need to have distance? You tell me.
Distance.
Of course. Isn't it easier for you to coach somebody on their diet and their lifting weights because you ain't them?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Right? You can see it from a distance, which is why we hire coaches. And they're invaluable, and they are probably the greatest investment of capital we could ever make is to hire a coach or consultant to help us achieve X. Because not that we can't do it or that we're not smart, is that we need that distance that they provide. Now, they might have more experience and more intelligence and also, I totally get it. But that distance allows us to go, okay, well, they're going to take over the thinking brain so I can just do. I'm separating that component. Well, when we have to do it for ourselves, for our business, we must write things down. So now you know, distress does not grow a business. Thinking and archiving and having ideas and having competence in communication does grow a business, which means we have to calm down that cave person being activated all the time, because it activates it all the time, all day long. It wants to come out and beat stuff up, right? So we write things down. Okay, I'm good. Okay, I'm good. And after a while, we get so good at it that now we have built a different level of standard. Whereas before, you're like, adrenaline, and like, let's go conquer the world. You have that now because it's okay in our 20s, right? It won't want one big adrenaline rush. No kids and no wife. Right? Let's go. Come on. You think the world should be like you, hard charge. And, I saw this movie, Warfare. Have you seen the movie Warfare?
Mm-mm.
It's a true story about these guys getting pinned down. And these two guys get their legs pretty much emaciated. And then these other troops comes over to help them out. And one of the guys tells the guy whose legs are almost gone, bro, you can do it. And the guy's like, what the fuck? Like, dude, and the brain is kind of like that when we're in our 20s. Just one big, come on, man up. That's not productivity or life. In fact, most people don't hit their stride until their 50s. Most fortunes are really made in their 50s. It doesn't matter how much you've made, you hit all your fortune. Elon Musk became wealthier in his 50s than ever before, right? Everybody hits their 50s as a stride because we no longer drive that big adrenaline rush that we're seeking for. Nothing wrong with it. It's just not optimal. It's not the best way to grow our business. Because we could talk about strategy, Sigmoid curve, the law of three, Ricardo's law of competitive advantage, the 80-20 principle. We can talk about all of these things. But if we don't get the mindset right, it's all for naught. So if we learn to write things down as they occur to us, we're retraining our brain to lift better. I mean, have you ever gone to the gym and seen people lift poor form? Like, like they're bouncing. You're like, right? I don't say anything. I want to, right? But I'm sure you're like biting your, especially if you know what you're doing. Well, why would we want our businesses to be like that? Why do we want to be that guy at the gym? No. Form matters. Intensity matters. Concentration matters, right? Mind-body connection matters. All these little things, what I call little hinges swing big doors, matter tremendously. And that's mindset. So what we're doing is we're creating a change in the mindset of the individual that then creates a much better process of growing a business with faster growth, more profitability, and less stress. It's the only way to do it.
What did you change specifically with your mindset after you'd gone bankrupt and then became significantly successful after? What was the biggest shift in your mindset between those two chapters?
I'm really glad you asked. So when I was raised, I was poor growing up, right? Like, my mom was a single parent, and she was a lesbian. And so it was her and her lover, like in a 1-bedroom apartment, and then her and her lover and her friend and me, right? So it was like a lot of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. So I grew up in a rich area, Pacific Palisades, but probably the poorest person there. So I wanted to be rich. I had that mindset. I equated money with love. I'll get love if I have money. Go figure. Who knows? So I always sort of wanted to go make money. And then when I finally got the beautiful wife, who I'm still married to, and 3 kids, and I grew the business, I was making a couple $1,000,000 a year, and I was in my 30s. I was driving this Mercedes down from our big, beautiful house up in the valley next to Kim Kardashian and Ozzy Osbourne, and, in the Calabasas area. And I'm driving this Mercedes down. I'm 34 years old at the time. And I've made it. I'm it. I'm the American dream. And I remember going, where's my ticker tape parade? Like, what happened? And that became the turning point for the self-sabotaging. I was unhappy with the results because it didn't give me what I thought being a millionaire would give me. And so I began to make every possible wrong decision you can imagine. I didn't know it at the time. So I'm in retrospect, I know that's what happened, reflecting on it. And, belly up, lost the plane, lost the condo in Mammoth, almost lost the wife, kids, and house, kept those things up, but almost lost them, lost everything else, lost the business. And then I remember thinking to myself, I remember in a gas station, Robert, I was sitting putting gas in the car, and I had this custom-made Mercedes, a beautiful car, like a CLS 55 AMG. It was incredible. And I'm like, man, was I just lucky? Was I one of those people that got lucky and then realized you're not good enough, you suck, and then went down to the bottom, and I'm done? And I remember thinking, I'm just going to get a job at McDonald's. True story. I was like, I'm just going to get a job at McDonald's. I'm going to sell the house. I'm going to move to an apartment. And I'm going to be an average person. Nothing wrong with that. But that was where I was at mentally. And then I was like, no, I was competitive. So I was like, no, you can do this. So I had this battle. And I remember I had these journals over. I'll show you. All those journals are, right, I've kept about, what journal am I on now? 39. This is journal number 39, right? So I've been keeping since I was 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this big, beautiful house in California and this big, beautiful library. And I can't make the mortgage. I'm behind the mortgage payments. And I'm writing, trying to figure out, geez, what happened? Like how did I get here, basically? And it was terrible. And I'm giving you a very short version, a very long, painful story. I don't wish this on anybody, by the way, because it was a soul-searching, horrible experience that I don't ever want to relive, and I don't want it on anybody because it was very, very tough. And I'm writing stuff, and my wife says, now we're broke, right? We're trying to build business back up again. We have no money. Our kids went from private school to, no private school, right? Like all these things shifted. My wife and I aren't really seeing eye to eye, getting along at the time. I was an asshole. It wasn't her. It was totally me. And she walks in the library, opens the door, and says, hey, if what you're doing isn't working, why don't you just do the opposite? And then she just leaves. And I was like, my first thought was, how dare you, right? Like, what's up? But then I took it to heart and I was like, man, what if she's right? And it's been decades since this happened, right? And I've asked her, and she goes, I don't remember. I don't remember saying that. And I'm like, I wonder, did she say it to like jab at me? Or was it God saying, hey, deliver this message to your husband? I don't know what it was, right? Or well, she's smarter than I am. So, I don't know where that came from. But I drew a pyramid of what was happening at that time. And I put in, what was I focused on? Not what I valued, because values are important. Vision, values, goals, principle, price, and promise. VG2P2. And I put, where am I really spending my time? What am I really focused on? And at the very top of the list was money. So the pyramid, right? Money. I wanted money because I had none, right? And Zig Ziglar said, money isn't everything, but it ranks right up there with oxygen. When you need it, there are very few substitutes for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty clear. So money, and the bottom was family. And I'm like, my God, that sucks. Like it hit me hard. And then I've got a bunch of stuff, friends and, health and stuff in the middle of the pyramid. And I thought, what if I flip the pyramid upside down? What if I change my behavior and flip it? Now, mind you, I knew everything about succeeding in business and all this stuff, right? What if I flip it upside down? What if I spend most of the time on the family and health and friends and freedom? And what if I make money the least important thing in my life? And then I got a panic attack. Like, you ever have a panic attack?
Mm-hmm.
It is, man.
It's the worst.
It's the worst, bro. It's the worst. I have since figured out how not to have them. And the way is you don't avoid them, you confront them, which is great. Because it's also a metaphor for life, by the way. And I mean, I was like, I'm going to die. And it was like this cataclysmic shift because I was scared out of my mind that if I didn't choose the money first, I was going to lose everything times two and end up being, and my biggest fear is not complacency, but my biggest fear was at the time being a terrible dad, right? And not serving my children and them not succeeding. Oh my God, never mind me. What about them? And I had two boys and a girl. And then after I calmed down and I started looking at all the books, I mean, I've got 6,000 books I've read. Started looking at all the books I had read at the time and thought, well, let me look at the history of my little business career and what principles and values and what have I done that's worked and what hasn't worked. And so I started to write and started writing down I still have it in my journals, did this work? This didn't. So what worked? What didn't work? And I ended up with about 55, 60 pages of these principles. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to apply every principle that's worked again. And then I'm going to 80-20 that to see, I'm not going to do these other things that don't work. And that one of them was working hard, by the way. Working hard doesn't work. In fact, it's the opposite. And this was from me having grown a company from zero to Inc. 500 fastest growing companies by myself in my house, in my bathroom. I put a phone in the bathroom, closed the door, and started making phone calls. I mean, that's how I built my business. And I hired one person in the house. And so it wasn't like I got money and, no, I mean, I did it just like you in my backyard, so to speak, right? Growing bit by bit. And so I knew everything about my business. I knew all the software. I knew the product, the vendors. I knew everything. So I had this unique advantage of knowing what had worked throughout these phases. And then I laid out the phases of what worked, what didn't work. And said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to focus on what works. And it was counterintuitive. What I discovered was, and I'll give you the answer to the mindset. What I discovered was what I thought worked hadn't worked. It was a chimera. I used to call them chimeras, but it's really pronounced chimera. I faked myself out. The things that worked didn't seem to be that effortful. They were kind of effortless. Like find A players. But I'd hired all a bunch of losers. But really, people made me money were A players. Very easy to hire B and C players. Hard to hire A players. And I thought, oh, interesting. So I said, I'm only going to apply these. I would go to the office. I was there before we opened and after we closed, right? I was the guy working. Never went to the office ever again. Said never going to the office again. Was wearing suits and tie. Stopped wearing suits and tie, right? I did the complete opposite. It took me 7 years to go from zero to millionaire at 10 million. And then it took me, the second time around after, it took me 2 years to recover, by the way, to like get ahead of my ass. And then I went from 0 to 20 million in cash in 3.5 years. And didn't go to the office, didn't push hard, didn't do all these things. Instead, I applied the principles that had worked historically for me, and I applied them with the essence of family first, period, end of story. So like right now, we won't talk about business. My wife and I, our business together until after we finished our coffee and reading. And then when we go to the gym around 4:30, after that, we don't talk business anymore. So I will only deal with business from 10 or 11 to like 3 or 4. And when we travel, we don't do any of it. And I make more money and I'm happier than I've ever been now. So the shift in mindset was that I realized that the lie I had bought about succeeding was what was preventing me from becoming really successful. It is counterintuitive. It's not what you think it is. It's hidden underneath what you think it is. And when I started looking at my mentors, like Jim Rohn, I mean, I love Jim Rohn, God rest his soul. I thought it was go, work hard. But when I really looked at what he did and what he said, that fucker didn't work that hard. He worked for a period of time, was intense, and then that was it. And I looked at Armand Hammer, I read his biography multiple times. W. Clement Stone. What do you think Napoleon Hill was or wasn't successful? All these guys, wait a minute. Peter Daniels is probably a billionaire, still alive at 92. He wrote a book called How to Get More Done and Have Time Left Over. And then in one of his talks, he goes, hey, look, man, I get up in the morning, and now he's retired, right? But he goes, I get up in the morning and I make my wife a toast and marmalade. I call that self-preservation. She can't be okay, so she has a coffee, toast and marmalade. I stroll down he had his office, he had like a Trump Tower in Australia. So he lived in the penthouse office downstairs. He goes, I stroll down at the office. It's about 10 o'clock and then I'm done by 3 or 4. I'm like, motherfucker, how come we think you're working 10 hours a day when in reality, bro, it's, you know what I mean? But what principles are you using? So the shift in my mind that really got me out of that was a reversal of what was important to me based on my values, and that it's principally centered in order for us to succeed. It is not what we think it is. It isn't up and dawn, give it all you've got, unless you're starting. That's my disclaimer. If you're starting in the next 12 to 18 months, buddy, you better give it balls to the walls. End of story, right? Period. But once you figure it out, or if you are redoing it again, you're doing it wrong. And the best example I give you, do you ski, like snow ski?
I've snowboarded, but I'm not a skier by any means.
Okay, well, I snowboard too. My kids snowboard. We used to have a condo in Mammoth before I lost it. Now we have 2 places in Utah. We do better. And when you go ski or snowboard, how about snowboarding? If I'm going to snowboard and I'm new at the snowboarding and you get me on top of the mountain and, it's a blue run, are you going to tell me to lean back or lean forward?
Lean forward.
But what does my intuition want to do?
Lean back.
That's right. So success is not leaning back, it's leaning forward, but it is counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm. I busted my ass too many times leaning backwards. So yeah, don't want to do that.
The only problem is in our physicality, Robert, we get immediate feedback. Oh, that hurt. Not going to do that again. Or, oh, I did it again. Damn it. Right? But in business, we don't have that immediate feedback. We just think, oh, I didn't lean back hard enough. Let me lean back harder even more. You're just going to end up hitting yourself more and more. The mindset shift. Look, mindset is defined. In fact, the role of the CEO has 4 pieces: chief mindsetter, chief strategist, chief team builder, and chief sales officer. Mindset, strategy, team, and sales. That's your role. You set the mindset, the strategy, you build the team, and you focus on sales. Doesn't mean you have to do sales, but you got to focus on sales, right? Because without sales, you don't grow. And without the mindset, just strategy, team, and sales, you won't get there right. You got to start with the mindset first. And mindset is defined as, what do you, Robert, hold to be true about yourself, the world, and those around you? What we've done in this little conversation, not really a podcast, just kind of riffing together, apparently. What we've done is I began to help you change your mindset. I've introduced new truths and questioned truths that you think you have. Because what gets you isn't what you know, it's what you know that ain't so.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
I know a sugar diet is good. Mother effer, it ain't. It's what you think you know that ain't so that gets you into trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at our wonderful friend, Judy Cho, man, she's all about, which is the way to grow, it's what if I know isn't true? And we're always questioning that. That's how we grow. What if what I think I know isn't true? It's called the know nothing mindset, which I love. We'll talk about that in a second. So it's not what you know, it's what you know that ain't so that gets you into trouble. So you think, oh, we're this company, that company. Well, what if that's not true? That's going to get you in trouble. So mindset is, what do you hold to be true about you, the world, and those around you? And the better you can finagle that, the better your mindset's going to be, because you'll be able to use little hinges to swing big doors. You're able to make little changes that have great impact. You'll apply the 80-20 principle appropriately. So do you ever watch you're probably too young for this, the Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom, where Sean Connery plays Indiana Jones' dad?
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Okay, cool. Do you remember he's trying to read the clues in the Bible to go to find the cup of Christ? Remember that? There's a scene where he's got to walk from one edge of the mountain to the other edge, but there's no bridge. You take a step, you're going to fall down and you're going to die. And then he's like, oh my God. And he reads the thing, and it's about faith. And then he just closes his eyes and takes a step. Boom. And sure enough, he doesn't fall. It was an optical illusion that there was a bridge there, but it made it look like it was going to fall. And then he throws sand on it, and now you can see it. That's the best metaphor I can give you on how to change your mindset, is that you're going to have to take a leap of faith, a step, when you don't see what's there, but it's actually there. There are these hidden principles that allow us to grow exponentially with less effort and more joy and no stress. But most of us are afraid to take that step because we think we're going to fall down. If I don't work really hard, it all falls apart. If I don't stress about it really hard, I won't control it. The truth is the complete opposite of that. So what I had was a reversal of what I thought worked, took a leap of faith, stepped into the unknown, realized there is a bridge there that most of us can't see. And that got me from one edge, poverty, to the other edge, which is success and happiness. That's the key. It's what you believe to be true about yourself, the world, and those around you. If you believe, like you said, that, I like stress and it motivates me, well, that's going to be true. But it's not productive or optimal. No different than saying, I like carbohydrates, I'm the bro diet, eat your macros, that works for me. Cool, but it's not true. At least not for optimal health and body composition. Might be for body composition, but you're missing this other pillar on this side here. So changing the mind to this to question, what if what I think is true isn't, and what are better things to believe? Isn't it better to believe that the less you work, the more money you'll make?
That would be a better belief for sure.
Yeah. Or the less you work, the more value you provide to your clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? The better you think, the better your clients get results.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we adopted these more empowering beliefs about ourselves and those around us in the world that are designed to give us more from less, i.e. the book 80/20. Better results, less effort. Better happiness, less effort. Better joy, less effort. It's exactly parallel to bodybuilding or lifting, which is why I love it. Now I'm not, I used to be 220, I'm 160, no, I'm 177 now. At the peak, I was 225. I got from 165 at age 38 to 40, from 165 to 215 clean. 215, 225, not clean. I don't recommend it, but 90 days of testosterone. By the way, I don't know if you've ever done testosterone, but I remember when Stan gave me the first shot on a Sunday. Monday was Universal Chest Day, as we all know. He put 120-pound barbells on me to do incline bench press. I was like, you're out of your fucking mind, Stan. He goes, Dad, I know it. I was like, what the? Like, dude, how did this? I was on Deal Bold and T. Anyway, for 90 days, did a photo shoot, never went back to the gym after that. Then 2 years building it up. I just got fat afterwards and happy. And I was like, it was pretty crazy. But I remember thinking to myself that day, the very next day, after doing, I think it was a milliliter of testosterone, how much stronger I was. First of all, much more aggro, but stronger. And my brain wasn't catching up to my body. My brain's like, at 6, you're going to stop. Like, that's all you can do. My body's like, nope, I can keep on going. There's this weird shift between the mindset and the reality of my body could do at that moment in time. It took a minute for my brain to catch up. And Stan was like, it's going to take a minute for your brain to catch up. I was like, no, well, and it took a minute for my brain to catch up that I could do more. Well, in the real world of business, it's exactly the opposite. Your brain has much more capacity than your body understands it can. You can literally sit and think for 2 hours by yourself, and then the next day hang out with your team, throw the ideas out in a not a stress situation, but a thinking situation, and you'll make more progress in your business in that 2 days or 4 hours of work than you will in a whole year of effort.
I totally believe that. I need to implement it better. I totally believe that. I recognize it to be true, and there'll be moments in my life where I allow myself that, where I'll just disconnect intentionally. I'll have some moment of solitude, and I'm always coming back better for it. I just need to be as protective as that time as I am with everything else I do. I need to make
100%.
So yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of building your body like building your business. It really is exactly the same thing, right? Look at what you do for your body, right? You lift an hour and a half a day. Now, how many days a week you're lifting now?
5 or 6 usually.
Great, 5 or 6, right? And 1 day for God, right? The Sabbath on Sunday, we're good to go, right? So 5 or 6 days, whatever you think is appropriate, and you give your body the proper nutrition, right? Keto breaks, and meat, whatever else you're eating out there that you think is optimal for it, and your body rests, and you let your body do what your body's going to do. Now, you intuitively know how to do this, and you've tracked your not your macros, your metrics about, the weight and the food, and you're tracking these components. But why would you treat your business any different?
Because I get in my own head too much. So I need to not do that, for sure.
So what if you treated your body like you treat your business? How well would you do at bodybuilding?
I probably look terrible.
You would, right? A business has to have a little work and then let it do its thing. Right now, not for too long, but that day, let it do its thing, a little work, let it do its thing. It must be strategically grown. And then you're going to find, I'm sure you've had in your career times where certain parts of your body just don't move, right? There's no growth, no strength, nothing. Other times, when you're just increasing that, like, man, like every week I'm just moving weights up and up and up and up. And it's not just starting new. It happens to old folks too, right? Your body knows and it transitions. This is the same way. So that it'll just be flat. And boom, you get a nice jump and then flat again. And then jump and then flat again. But you got to treat it. Let me rephrase that. I would treat it as I would treat my bodybuilding. That's how I would build my business. That's how I build my business now. I mean, every business we have, there's crises all the time. I pay no attention to them. None. Why? Because they're not going to solve anything for me. First of all, I write things down, and I use Getting Things Done methodology by David Allen to deal with that. But I don't worry about emergencies. There aren't any emergencies. There are problems to solve, but me being stressed out about it today versus thinking about it tomorrow, thinking about it's going to be a much better situation. So I never pay attention to it. There was a guy, Mike Frank. I had Mike Frank in my board of directors when I had One Stop. Mike Frank was a billionaire who had been partnered with Warren Buffett in 2 companies, FMS and Level 3 Communication. Really nice guy. And he ended up hiring me to coach him after we connected. But I remember asking him, we're sitting in his house in Montecito, California, big, beautiful house, probably 25, 30 million house at the time. This was now 20 years ago. And I said, hey, Mike, what did you do for Warren Buffett and these guys? And they used to call him the Iceman because he hired and fired people. He was a human resource guy. He basically found people, put in position to do the job. And then I'm super curious. Right at the time, I'm in my 30s, right? Young, full of adrenaline. Let's go think of the world. And I said, hey, what makes people successful and not successful in your experience? And he goes, that's easy. And his room had 2 doors. One door over here led to the kitchen. Now we're looking, the view was into the backyard, beautiful pool, fountain, ocean view. I mean, it was incredible. And the other one was in a study. This kind of like a middle room, study, middle room, and then the kitchen. Because I want you to imagine, Marx, that we're sitting in this room with a bunch of puppies, little puppies, cute little puppies. What do those puppies do? Like, well, they goes, yeah, but what do they do to your ankles? Oh, they bite your ankles and they nib on your feet and your laces and they have really sharp teeth and ow, it hurts and you kind of got to swat them down. And your job is to go from that door to that door. Successful people and unsuccessful people both know where they have to go from A to B. But the unsuccessful people, when the dogs start biting, they stop and they swat the puppies and they try to get the puppies off their feet and they spend all their time trying to get the puppies not to bite, become ankle biters. The successful people, they just ignore the ankle biters and endure the pain and go from one door to the next. They don't deal with the necessities, urgencies, and problems of the business. They just go from A to B. And that stuck with me. So emergencies are little ankle biters. The minute you deal with them, you're stopping from going from A to B. So emergencies do not change our business, us dealing with them right away. In fact, if anything, you're at the gym, hey, we got this tallow. You write down tallow problem and you go keep on lifting is much more productive than now worrying about it because you've activated the caveman versus the thinking man. And you can't solve with the caveman. Now, if there's a leak in the bathroom and it's flooding your production line, you better get the caveman to go run and fix that, right? Those emergencies exist and we need the caveman. But the other ones are just imaginary. You now have to ask yourself not this question of, oh my God, and I'm making this up at the tallow. I'm just picking an ingredient, right? But oh my God, the tallow's different. Well, how about a better question? How do I utilize this issue to help me achieve my goals faster and quicker? How do I turn this into a money-making opportunity? When I was diagnosed with diabetes type 1 in 2020, I went, the story. I almost died, the whole thing. I didn't know I was diabetic. I mean, it just sort of came on. No idea where I got it from, no family history. After I got back, I took a year off, read everything, every white paper, every book, got really into nutrition, the whole component of it. But I asked myself this question: how do I utilize this to make myself healthier, happier, and wealthier? I've made $2 million extra from being a type 1 diabetic that I wouldn't have made had I not become a type 1 diabetic. I turned it into not just making money, but also becoming healthier and a better husband and a better father and a better person. I'm like, how do I take this, as Napoleon Hill says, within every adversity, therein lies a seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. I really believe that. So when a crisis shows up, Chinese character for crisis, both crisis and opportunity, right? That's what the Chinese character is. It's not about, oh my God, how do I solve this problem with this, whatever. It's how do I turn this into something more powerful, beneficial for me? If you begin to ask yourself that question, then problems aren't problems anymore. They're simply lily pads. You can leapfrog from one to the other to get to either the outcome you already have predetermined or a new, better outcome you have predetermined. If we just see it as the absence of the negative, we can't have a positive outcome of it. How do I get rid of this problem versus how do I take this situation and make it work in my favor to either something that I'm already destined to look to try to get or something brand new? It changes the mindset of how things work, of what
Mm-hmm.
challenges are. And you do that naturally as an entrepreneur, but you don't do it consciously. Naturally and consciously aren't the same thing. Naturally just means, I'm built that way because I got to keep moving forward. Consciously means, hold on, time out, call an audible. Hold on a second. I'm going to now consciously think of this as an opportunity to either achieve my desired outcome faster or, hey, where's the opportunity here that I haven't yet experienced that will get me to a better place? Make sense?
Makes total sense. Yeah. I try to, I feel like I do that. I need to physically do that more, but I think from the conscious standpoint, I have shifted my thinking over the past 8 years or so to really embrace any adversity as an opportunity. And it's annoying in the moment for sure, but I don't get dismantled by it. I always see it as the potential for a higher upside. So I do try and I probably should pause and not have any emotion towards it all and just think about it better than I do for sure. But I 100% agree with you there.
Well, I don't know that having no emotion is a beneficial piece, right? Because, Stoicism,
Or negative
and
emotion, I should say.
well, negative emotion could also be positive if it gets you into action.
Yeah.
You talk about Stoicism. I have a real allergic reaction, and I wouldn't say disdain, but close to it, to people's erroneous interpretation of Stoicism. And that's what I mean. So we see Stoic as nothing affects me. I am stoic, right? Like I am impervious. I am Spock from Star Trek, or I'm a droid. That's not at all what Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus, and that's not at all what Stoicism is. Stoicism is giggling your way to happiness and success and being giddy. It's the complete opposite of that. I'll give you this example. So my middle son, who's 25 now, served a mission in Brazil, a religious mission in Brazil, in a place called Recife. And Recife is a third world country. Like, it is, they're sleeping in like clay beds. I mean, it is like, he got diarrhea every other day.
Mm-hmm.
It was right. And there was this lake, and this lake had, we don't know for sure, but we thought piranhas and leeches. And I wrote him a 35-page letter every single week. I just sent him a letter via email, and he'd go to a little bit and print it. He had one P day. And one of the letters I said, we talked about Stoicism. He was into Stoicism at the time, right? And I said, well, let me give you a scenario, and you tell me who the Stoic is. So you've got 4 people on one side of the lake, and you got to get to the side of the lake, or you want to get to the side of the lake where, there's all kinds of cool stuff. The first one freaks out, yucky, yucky, and doesn't even go in the lake. Just runs in the opposite direction, right? Just fear-based. Okay, we know he's not the Stoic. The other one comes down and says, I'm going to cross it, and just crosses the lake Stoic-like. And piranhas get him, and the leeches, and he gets to it, and he's like, right, whatever, right? And he must be the Stoic. The other one goes, oh my God, and he's crying and screaming and pulling leeches, and he's just freaking the freak out, having a terrible time, hating of it, gets to the side of the lake. We know he's not the Stoic. The fourth guy comes in, he starts laughing and giggling, oh my God, and he's like, and he's making kinds of jokes, and he's trying to move, and he gets from the side, to the other side of the lake, and he's got the same leech marks and stuff, and he's laughing, having a good time, and thinking, man, that was crazy. So you've got 3. The crazy, this is terrible. The guy that was stoic, and the guy that laughed all the way through and had a good time and, enjoyed the pain of the process. Who's the real Stoic?
Definitely the fourth. Yeah.
Of course, the fourth. That's what Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was not for publication. It was himself trying to apply principles that he had learned of Stoicism to a better life. He's talking to himself, not to you or I. It's his diary.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to make it about having a better attitude, a positive attitude, a happier attitude. That's the Stoic. So not being emotional is not Stoicism. Being emotional and then turning that emotion to a different kind of emotion to more positive, that's Stoicism. So we see Stoic as this unafraid or unaffected way of being. It's the opposite. It's highly affected. You're very sensitive. You're very touched by it, but you control where that energy goes and how you transform it. We know I'm sitting in the hospital. It was COVID, right? So my wife couldn't be with me. We are inseparable. I mean, we do everything together, right? We shower together, we eat together, we train together. We are best friends. We've been together for 38 years. We never get tired. She might get tired of me, but I don't get tired of her. We're inseparable, right? In that hospital, she needed to be right next to me. She couldn't do it. They wouldn't let her in the COVID. I mean, I cried, Robert. It was urgent care. I had no idea I had diabetes. I thought I was just going through something. They go, you're diabetic. You have organ failure. We got to call the ambulance, get you to the hospital. I was like, holy crap, right? She couldn't go in the ambulance with me. I'm crying, literally crying in the ambulance because she's not with me. I'm freaking the freak out. She's behind me in the car. They open the door, get me out. She's looking at me. I'm crying. I mean, it was a terrible experience, right? We get into the emergency, go to the ICU. They asked me, how long you been diabetic? I was like, I'm not a diabetic. What's wrong with you? Oh, buddy, you're a diabetic. No idea what diabetes was. No idea that I had insulin, nothing. 4 days, 3 in the ICU, 1 in regular. They had to wake me up one time to get potassium because I was about to die if I didn't have potassium. Anyway, I'm in there and I'm freaking out. But I remember the very first night. Have you ever been to the ICU?
Yes, not for my own issues, but yeah, I've been to ICU.
Okay, well, hopefully you'll never have to go for issues. I didn't know. You get in a room, it's all windows, and there's a toilet. But it ain't in the bathroom. The toilet's right there. So you got to pee and poo, everybody watching you. Now, I had to poo. I got to go poo. And I'm like, okay, I got to poo. I got to poo. There's no bathroom. I'm sitting there with my little robe, all electrodes everywhere on me, right? Because I have to be fully monitored. And I'm just dumping like a quantum deuce of what must have been the stinkiest, nastiest, more poop afraid, right? And and I couldn't help but started laughing, literally out loud at the ridiculousness. I'm in this robe taking a big dump, a bunch of all these nurses in the ICU. Like, come on, man. And I thought, okay, I understand now what I need to do. And I just, the gravity was pretty serious, but I kind of was laughing about it and made jokes and had a good time and got out there, came home. My kids had flown in, hugged them, cried, and said, okay, let's get to work. And took the attitude of, I'm going to figure out how to get this to be a benefit for me. Gleefully so, not without ups and downs and tribulations and tired and more crying and scared and all that stuff happened. But I didn't let it sit there. I went, okay, well, I cried, I'm done. Now let's go on. How do I utilize this? That's the best way to Stoicism. In business, ain't that serious. So you don't have to linger in the negative emotion too long. Let it affect you, let it hit you, let it hurt you, let it make you feel, okay, oh man, that didn't feel good. Damn it. Bobby promised me that he didn't come through. Okay, 5 minutes. All right, how do I now utilize this to go to the next thing? If whatever we whatever we resist persists. So if we try to block out the negative emotion, it's got a message to deliver. It's going to push harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And it's going to get more and more and more intense. And then you end up with either anxiety or a panic attack. If you accept the emotion and say, all right, do your worst. No different than pain. I was doing legs yesterday by myself. My wife's on the treadmill. She hurt her finger, so she can't lift for another week. And, I used to be able to lift 13 45s on the leg press. It was a long time ago, right? I'm to like 4 on each side. So total of 8, right? I can do 13 on each side before. I don't know how many pounds that was, right? But now I'm 55 years old. My legs look like little Twinkie sticks, right? But I'm pushing the best I can, right? I'm to the point where my legs are hurting. And I see these kids, they're bouncing their weights and I want to give up, But I'm doing my thing nice and slow and controlled. And I want my legs to burn. I want them to burn so bad that I want to stop. And that burning makes me go until I can't go anymore. And so then with the leg extension and the curls and the calves, whatever, I want that burn. And it's like, that's the burn I'm looking for. And I make those faces, But they all think I'm stupid. I'm on this, and I'm like, don't care. Do not care. I need that burn. That's what I thrive for. And I look for that burn because I know I've hit the mother load. Okay, I'm getting something, or at least psychologically, I'm getting that component. Well, business is no different. I want that pain. Oh man, Bobby disappointed me. Damn it. I want that burn. I want that to feel. And then after I stop lifting, you get the wobbly legs, like you can't go to the bathroom, you have to hold on thing when you go poop, right? I want that feel. This is exactly the same thing. I want that pain of disappointment, of fear, whatever the negativity is, I want it. But it'll be short-lived. I say, I welcome. I said, come on, do your worst and be done with you. Do your worst and be done with you. It's like when I'm pushing on the legs. Okay, do your worst and be done with you. Because at some point, I can't take the pain anymore. My legs are going to give out. I'm done with that set. I'm done. And then the pain dissipates and I get the growth. I don't want to live in the pain, but I welcome the pain. So when I get disappointed or rejection, I welcome it. Man, they let me down, this, that, and the other. I don't try to be like, I am impervious. Those leeches and those piranhas are going to hurt. But only so long as you're crossing that little bridge. And when you get to the side, it's done. It's over with. So then I utilize that pain to go, okay, I'm good. I got it. I felt it. Okay, I'm over. Okay, now let's move on to the next thing. So it isn't about being a successful business person. It's not about being impenetrable or impermeable to pain. It's about feeling the pain as intense as you can, as short as you can. Be disappointed, but be really disappointed. Be afraid, but be really afraid, right? Be angry, but be really angry. And make the intensity, like lifting weights, it's about intensity or duration, right? Make it really intense and short duration. Okay, I'm done. I'm done being angry. I'm done. I'm done. Your body, you go hunting all the time, right? You ever see a deer and they get this component where they're like this, they're afraid, and then they shake it off? Okay, well, why can't we?
It's humans are weird, man. I do feel like I'm pretty good at that though. I start every day anew. Like I wake up, I could have the shittiest day. Yesterday was a pretty shitty day actually, but I got home. I enjoyed my time with my wife and kid. I woke up today, and today's a new day, and I embrace the day with all the beauty and gratitude and opportunity that it provides. I feel like that is. I didn't used to be like that. I used to let things linger, but I feel like you have to start afresh, start anew for sure.
100%. And look, all these things you already do naturally. Otherwise, you wouldn't be successful and you wouldn't be happy. You already do them. The question is, can we optimize? Can we maximize? And can we make it more conscious? Because being conscious about it allows us to be even better about it. It's like I'm assuming that when you lift weights, I don't know this to be true, that when you go do an exercise, you don't say to yourself, I'm going to do less than I did the other day, unless you're injured. You're going to try to do equal to or better, true or false.
True.
And you're going to try to bring more awareness or more in the moment to it. You're going to be more present. At least it doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but the intention is there, right? The intention is, hey, I'm going to spend the next hour and a half lifting. By golly, I better get as much value as I can out of this. You already do that naturally, and you do it consciously. Business should be that way as well. We have to take a conscious approach to our business and the ebbs and flows of business. It's not just about letting things roll off our back. It's, how do we increase the intensity of the negativity to shorten the duration and really feel it? Because we're going to get a lesson from this, right? We want that lesson. And then how do we bounce out of it, either neutral or in a positive component? I'm going to bring politics into this, which I'm sure I'm going to alienate some of your members, but they are, like or dislike Trump. Hey, look, let's just be objective for a second. In his first term, the doctor said, when he did his physical, that Trump had this ability to, no matter how bad the day was, wake up the next day in a great mood. The ability to reset. He only sleeps 4 or 5 hours a night. The ability to reset, not just in neutral, but in a great mood. And the ability hey, it's a new day. Let's go get him done. He loves life. Agree or disagree with him? That's not my point, but we have to look at the success aspect of what people are doing that are working for them. Most people that I know that are successful have that same ability and happy, have the same ability to wake up the next day as, like you said, a brand new day and, hey, let's go get it, despite what challenges and problems they may face. It isn't just a reset. It's how do we accept it as a new fun day?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have a reset and be like, all right, I'm neutral. Or you can be like, man, this is going to be a fantastic day. And then the trick is, how do we recover? Not the next day, but in the middle of the day. How do we get that crappy news and go, hey, man, whatever? And I think humor is a big way to do it. And I think feeling is a big way to do it. My middle son, right now, he's going through that I'm scared of everything in life. Doesn't know, but that's what kids go through phases. Yours kids will go through phases too. And I'm like, don't be afraid of it a little. Be really afraid of it. Like, be terrified of it. Be petrified of it to the point where you're about to have a panic attack, and then it'll go. In fact, the way to solve panic attacks, by the way, is most of us who have had anxiety or panic attacks, and I'm hoping it's not very many people, we feel it coming, the physical sensations, and immediately go, I got to get away from this. I can't let this happen. I have to stop it. And we try to stop it. And that sends to your brain more fear. All it is an adrenaline dump. A panic attack is strictly an adrenaline dump with no focal of fear. It's just adrenaline dump. So you get the physical sensations, and then your brain starts to go, reptilian kicks in, the amygdala oscillates, and you're like, ah, and now it's just one big adrenaline dump. Well, when adrenaline dumps in your body, it only lasts 10 to 15 minutes. That's it. That's it. But if you keep dumping adrenaline, you're going to keep having the 10 to 15 minutes. Well, how do we deal with the panic? How do you stop it in its track? You don't. You simply say, man, I'm having anxiety, panic attack right now. Okay, good. I'm not moving. Do your worst to be done with you. And you just sit and you take the pain. You take the fear, you take the pain, and you say, like, you imagine that you're stuck to your seat or stuck to whatever you are, you're just stuck. And you're like, all right, do your worst to be done with you. Come on. Go ahead. That's all you got. Bring it on, bitch. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then what happens is adrenaline dump, and then it just goes, oh, okay, there's really nothing else. And then it stops. And you still get okay, I got a little hungover over that one, but kind of is
It
what it
does
is.
suck. Yeah, I've had one that comes to recollection. Man, it was like 2:00 in the morning. I was worried about accounting books and finances and cash flow, invoices, all the jazz. And I just got up, pulled up my computer, went into QuickBooks, and was like, "All right, bring it on. Let's dive into this and figure this shit out."
That's exactly right. It's we as human beings were not designed to move away from things, but to move towards things, not just the positive, but the negatives. So we're designed like the deer to go, oh, thank God that's over. The deer doesn't go, oh crap, when it comes back again, right? The deer doesn't live in that. We do because we have auditory loops. We catastrophize and we have imagination. Ah! Well, the truth is, we just kind of go, okay, let's get at it. And when you have an emotional sensation that you don't like, do not try to stop it. Welcome it. Bring it on. Say, okay, all right, do your worst and be done with you. Just like the burning on the legs or the bicep or whatever it is. I can't get my chest to burn, but I can everything else I can. But it's a matter of like, welcome that negativity. It's there to serve you, but let it pass you like a wave. It comes in and then it goes out. Comes in and goes out. That's it. You do that. You get the lesson. You get the learning. You get the trauma not to stay in your noggin, but it goes through your body. You don't leave the gym with the same burn on your legs you did. You might be able to walk and you might have, weak legs, God willing, because you had a good workout, but the burn is gone. Negative emotions are there for a reason. We must welcome them, accept them, intensify them, and then they will leave on their own rather quickly. Yeah. Nothing lasts more than 10, 15 minutes physiologically, unless you just keep, you keep doing it. And that's how you transition from the negative to the positive. I don't think people who are successful at that aren't impervious to it. They just run the cycle faster.
No, I totally agree. And I think, whenever I'm going through something challenging, like physical, we'll just use the physical analogy. Like when I do a 50-mile march every year for veterans, it's like, it sucks, man. Every freaking step sucks. Like my feet hurt. You get 20, 30 miles in, you're like, how the hell did I convince myself to do this yet again? I've done it 4 or 5 years now. But knowing at the end of the night, I'll be able to sleep in a bed with my feet propped up. Like that's going to happen. That's going to happen in a matter of 6 or 8 hours or whatever. Like when you just know that, then that gets you through.
Yeah, it's momentary. It's temporary. And first of all, you chose it, so
yeah, for sure.
it's coming, right? but it's temporary, it's momentary, and it makes you better for it. What I would ask you is, during the sucky stuff, how can you make it suck even worse?
Just focusing on my feet, man. I got bad feet, so I just like drill down on it.
That's what you should do is, man, this is really bad. This really sucks. My feet really hurt. And you make the feet hurt even more. Weirdly enough, the body then has an opposite response called polarity response. And it starts to make the feet not hurt as bad. You would do ice baths?
Yeah, I got like a cold plunge that I'll do in the winter.
Okay. So we have a cold bath in the garage. We do it every morning, right? 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. And, some days are colder than others. But I never go, I'm warm. Oh, it's the other, first of all, I hate getting in that thing. Every morning I hate it. Oh my God, I don't love this. It's not like, yay. It's like, I get in, I'm like, man, this is cold. And I try not to get warm. I try to get colder. Like, all right, I'm going to get cold. I'm going to get colder. And inevitably I end up getting warmer. But I don't want to reject the reality. I want to embrace it even more so. Because think about it. What if you're enjoying something that's really pleasurable for you? Let's say you're in Spain and you're eating the world's greatest steak. And it's like, man, why would you want to not be enjoying that steak? You want to intensify the marbling on it, whatever the experience. You want to intensify. Well, why would negative emotions be any different? They're not.
Yeah,
You want
that's true.
to, and you want to intensify it for a short period duration, so you get the benefit of the learning and you get the growth. And guess what happens? The next time the emotion comes in, it's even shorter. Your body knows how to deal with it quickly, knows how to get it in and out faster. And it's not conscious thought of mental tricks and NLP and hypnosis. No. It's just physiology. It's like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm really going to feel it. And then brain goes, okay, you're done. We'll move on to something else. It doesn't want you to linger. It wants you to get the learning, get the message, and then move on to something else. Your brain doesn't want you to suffer. It's not there for you to suffer. It's there for survival and joy. I mean, if not, we wouldn't like sex. We'd be like, oh my God, I got to have sex again. That's a chore. All right, here we go. Right? It's the always like, all right, woo, nookie time, let's go. Our brains are designed for that. Physiology is designed for that. We're designed. The reason why you made the comment earlier about you're built for growth and progression, nothing motivates more than progress. Nothing. It doesn't matter. If I don't see progress, I'm not motivated. If I see progress, I'm highly motivated. You too, everybody. Which is why keto break solves that problem, because it allows you to progress faster with better optimal nutrition and better health. Try eating, I don't know, whatever else you want to eat. It won't give the same 2-to-1 fat to protein ratio. It won't give you the nutrient. It won't give it to you, right? You want to progress to grow. Progress equals motivation. If I'm making progress, I'm motivated. If I'm not making progress, I'm not motivated. Business is no different. What demotivates you aren't the problems, it's the lack of progress. It's going backwards. It's not succeeding. But when you're succeeding, you're highly motivated.
Mm-hmm.
You're all excited and pumped up. Well, then how do we get that lack of progress to actually be motivating? We accept the negativity of the emotion and then we turn it into, okay, well, how do I utilize this to do better? How do I take this challenge and not just, find the potential, but how do I actually turn it into something significantly better? Asking that question alone changes your mindset from yeet to, okay, this might be good and interesting. Not easy to do, but if we do it enough as a habit, we become really great at it. I mean, I've seen that happen.
What do you find in your life now in this chapter? What are you excited to progress towards or on?
So it's interesting because I think I segment life into different components, right? We all do. Relationship with your wife, with your kids, your friends, health, freedom. I'm to the point now where I covet freedom. And I was just thinking about this the other day, as a matter of fact. What I'm most excited about is understanding what freedom really is. And freedom isn't income and wealth. And freedom isn't even health, because people out there that, are paraplegics and have a lot of freedom. Freedom is the mental attitude to not give a shit. So for me, the less I can care about certain things, the more free I feel. And the more free I feel, the more risks I'm going to take. So for me, it's now about how do I embrace that mindset of freedom, which, by the way, counterintuitively, you end up doing more. I have a saying that says, he who cares the least gets the most. Now, people will misinterpret that. But, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about winning the competition. You should very much care about winning the competition. But you shouldn't care about how much pain you suffer in the gym, or how much you suffer with your diet, or not being able to go out with your buddies and drink beers, you shouldn't care about any of that. The less you care about that, the more freedom you have to do your absolute best. In fact, I'll give you this metaphor, which you'll love. Do you know what a samurai is?
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask nowadays because, in my generation knows. Your generation may not know what a samurai is, but samurai, Now, do you know what the samurai's role was?
What?
They were there to defend the land of their lord. That's what they were. They were basically hired guns. They lived on the land, and so when invaders came in to take over the land that their lord lived in, or their feudal lords, they would go on and fight it. And they would fight the samurais or whatever. The samurais were undefeated in battle. Undefeated. Until the tummy gun. Or tummy gun. They cranked, and then they cranking kill everybody out, right? But they were undefeated in battle. Now, why were the samurai undefeated in battle?
Because they were fearless?
Yes. But how did they become fearless?
I don't know.
They died before battle.
Yeah. They died, their mindset going into it, like they'd already lived, they'd already fought, they'd already done everything. So any outcome was irrelevant.
So here's what they would actually physically do. They would say, hey, look, the Lord comes in to samurai and goes, hey, bad guys are coming. Y'all got to get suited up and go defend my land. And the samurai said, okay, no problem, we'll do it. So then they would get together and they would have a ceremony where they would bury one of their armors in front of their spouses and their children. And their spouses and children would cry and they would bury them. And they were there watching this, but some were not going to come back. And so they had a chance to see the family die and mourn them. And literally they were dead. Some would come back and they'd be reborn. Some would come back, they're already dead. So they buried their armor, one of their armors, and the kids, and hey, mom, dad, and cry, whatever have you. And they go off to battle. Now I'm going to ask you this. When they are doing their samurai moves and they're unhooked from the fear of death, how are they going to fight?
Optimally.
100%. 100% full optimal, whatever your capacity is, you're there because they're already dead. They've got nothing to lose. That's freedom. So they'd move the right moves. But if you go, oh my God, what if this guy gets me? Now you can't promote your best. You cannot be your best if you're afraid of the ego dying, which is really what we're most afraid of. Not physical death, but the ego death. But they already been died, physically and ego. They had zero to lose. Therefore, they can perform at their best. You as an executive, as the owner of your company, must be a samurai. In the samurai code, it says, translated into English, the samurai must remember by day or by night that he too someday shall die. That's the first code of the Code of Samurai book. So the executive must remember that he too someday must die. If you are not afraid of losing your business, losing your money, you're looking foolish in the marketplace, if you have no fear as an executive, how are you going to perform?
Also, optimally.
100%. When you go lift weights, you're not afraid of the weights. In fact, you're welcoming heavier weights, I'm assuming, right? You welcome the challenge. You don't have a fear of looking stupid at the gym. You don't have a fear of going, well, I'm only going to grab 30 pounds for my dumbbells because I'm working on this side. You don't give a crap, I'm assuming, right? Most pros don't care. They don't, it's not a competition on how much weight, unless you're a power lifter, how much weight you can lift. An executive, a CEO, an entrepreneur, the more you are detached from the death of the ego and have no fear to make proper decisions, you will be more successful. Stress is not conducive to having no fear. Stress is fear.
The ego is the enemy.
Ego is the enemy. So say the Stoic, which, comes out from earlier times. Ego is the fear of looking stupid, making mistakes, being foolish, being made fun of, all these components. That's freedom to me. So yes, what I'm most excited about is really that, is how do I lean more into that freedom. Not just, I mean, I have money, and we all have some money, right? I mean, you could move to Thailand tomorrow and live the rest of your life as a rich man, right? Or the Philippines, whatever. You don't want to because, where you live is fantastic. But you get my point is that we're all rich relative to where we live. And, I have people here that are billionaires that are neighbors. I'm not a billionaire, right? So do I feel less than that? I just don't care. It's the ability to be free because then I can do my absolute best at things that interest me. That gives me progress. It also eliminates fear, not pain. Pain is still present in our lives. We get disappointed, we get the emotions. But fear is a self-induced construct of catastrophizing ourselves. That's bad. So the more that I can get rid of the ego and be free to make good decisions, the better life I lead. And that's no different for an executive. In fact, the biggest coaching I give executives I work with, or CEOs, or whatever you call it, is a change in the mindset. And it's never about the money. It's always about the detachment of the ego. Now, some will say, well, ego is good. No, no, no. Ego is bad. What's good is wanting the best, wanting optimal, wanting progress. Peter Drucker used to take on a skill every 5 years, lived to be in his 90s or something. Take a skill up every 5 years. Well, when you start a new skill, you're going to suck, absolutely suck at it. But it was that growth that he kept wanting to get. Human beings are wired that way. You cannot do that with the ego. You cannot at age 55 go to the gym with these 20 whatever year old kids and have your ego there because they're all going to be bigger, stronger. But if I don't have that fear, then I can go do my best and whatever that is for me and enjoy my life. If I let the ego take charge, I won't go to the gym.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. I completely agree. I feel like perspective, I don't know, my perspective shifted a lot since I had Rigel, my son. And it's like, I feel like internally very happy and at peace with my life, where I'm at. I'm very ambitious and hungry, but I have this like overwhelming sense of peace. And I think that's a result of the perspective shift. But I feel like my ego has certainly been removed to some extent. And that was always where the issues lied.
Well, before you had your kid, you wouldn't die for your wife and son. Now you would.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, as a good father, not all fathers are good fathers, but as a good father, there's nothing. You will put yourself in harm's way for your child or wife. I'm sure for your mom and dad, but there are people that's a death of the ego. Well, to be a successful entrepreneur, no different. You must be willing to make the tough choices. You got a buddy that you love who's incompetent, you got to fire his ass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just making this example because it's a common example, right? You got to let him go. But no, then the ego is driving that decision making.
Yeah. No.
Ego right? Ego drives that choice rather than doing what's best for the business, which implies it's not big deal. It's just business. All they're saying is, hey, man, I have no ego. I've got to take care of my business. That's my response. He's a child of mine. Therefore, I got to make these tough choices. Significantly harder to do, but optimal in all ways. It's like the lifting weights analogy works great. If ever you want to solve a problem in your business, just think of it, well, how would I solve this in lifting weights? Or how to solve it in bodybuilding? What would I do? Okay, well, what's the equivalent in my business? Okay, this decision I make. If you're eating crappy food, can you get to where you want to get? No, of course not. Well, then why would you have a crappy employee?
Yeah, that's very true, man. I love the bodybuilding analogy. I can rattle those off all day long. So I did speak my language there.
Yeah, in fact, you probably haven't made the connection wholly yet, consciously. But the reason you've succeeded at your business is because whatever you've done that's been successful, if you think about it, are the same principles you're applying in your bodybuilding.
No, 100%.
What you failed, it's the opposite is also true.
I totally agree with that. I did just get notification that my computer battery is running a little bit low, though.
No worries, pal.
What's the next book? I read the book that you recommended, 80-20 Daily. What's the next book you would put on my my reading list? You got 6 things left in there.
Yeah, well, it's a tough thing. So have you read Jonathan Livingston Seagull?
No, I don't think so.
So I would give you 2 books. You can read it in the pooper. I mean, it's literally this big. It's got pictures in it. And it's by Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. You will absolutely love it. You are that seagull. And every successful individual is, in some form or another, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And then the other book I would recommend, I'm trying to think if I should give you, because that's a storybook. The problem with how-to books is that the formula is, you suck, your life is shit, I have the solution, do what I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never true. It's never true. It's all a marketing ploy. I've read them all. They're all terrible. I mean, all these motivational speakers, they all suck. They're all terrible. They don't tell you the truth. They tell you what triggers the reptilian brain, so you'll buy more stuff and see them rather than looking for yourself. So be mindful of that, including the one you read with the X's, 2X, 10X. Terrible book. Terrible book. And Dan Sullivan used to be a good coach, not anymore. So I think Johnson Livingston Seagull's one, and probably, let me ask you this then. What's the one thing you would benefit most from in your life if you had different information?
That's a tough question as well, because I segment my life kind of. It's interesting, man. Like I've got my, home life, family life, relationship life, work life, but I've tried to make my life all symbiotic in nature. Like everything complements the whole. It's all synergistic. But honestly, man, just like figuring out how to leverage the opportunity of the business as a vehicle that's conducive to, a positive environment for my kids. Like I don't want that to be a detriment to them. I want it to be a positive. And I think finding a way to integrate those for their sake, because I see the big picture and they see it, but like bringing that more to fruition for them.
So you want to connect your kids more to the mission of your business?
Yeah, and basically just use that as a vehicle to provide opportunity and growth for them. Like just how bodybuilding has positively impacted my entrepreneurial endeavors. Let the business act as a vehicle to build their character traits and values that will benefit them in life.
So Jonathan Livingston Seagull, you should read for sure, and you should have your kids read it for sure. Now, my kids, by the way, they're big readers, all three of them. And in fact, my oldest son has probably read several thousand books. He's 27. He's now working, I told you, he's in DC, and he's setting the world on fire because everybody who meets him is like, oh my God, this kid's incredible. And they all want him now, where he lived in Utah before, he was like just in the wrong environment. Now he's in the right environment of high intellectuality, what have you. And so they've read a lot of books. I would say I'm between two books. John Davis go for sure, but I'm between Napoleon Hill book, either Outwitting the Devil,
Outwitting the Devil?
which it'll blow your mind.
All right.
It is, Outwitting. It's a short little book. He interviews the devil by the Lincoln Memorial in 1939. So you have to decide whether it's true or not, right? I think that one. And by the way, an ADD moment. Did you read Georgia Eads' book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind?
I've had Georgia Eid on the podcast, and I've read snippets of her book, but I haven't read it cover to cover.
It's a great book. I mean, it's not that you should read it, but it is a great book. And it's about keto, of course, as you know. And very, very interesting book. I liked it a lot. I've read them all, and most of them are pretty crappy. And I love some of these guys. Like, I love Ted Naiman. I mean, I adore him. I adore him. He's a fantastic human being. But I don't agree with how because I think he missed a few things. But you know what? I'm stupid. But George Eid, I think, hits it pretty much on the mark. So I would read, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you two by the same author. I'm going to give you Mastermind, a little book, and by Napoleon Hill, and Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Mastermind was the book that made me, it's the singular book that's made me $1 million in the shortest period of time I've ever made. I had already been diagnosed diabetic. I had a client and love him. We become best friends. And I had this idea, and the idea made me $1 million. The idea came from that book. And it took me literally 15 minutes to implement.
All right.
And in 4 months, I made $1 million. Yeah.
What do you think of Mastery by Robert Greene?
So, I read them all. I have them. They're somewhere up there. Seduction, Mastery, The Laws of Power. Where is that? Oh, yeah, there he is. Mastery, The Art of War, Seduction. I don't know if you can see him there. Right there, as a matter of fact. Oh, wait, no, wait, where's my... Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, right? So, I like him. He is a good author. But unfortunately for him, a lot of things that he says are erroneous. And, he's a failed screenwriter who got angry and wrote books on trying to expose people. So is it worth reading? I mean, I've read it. There are very few books I'll come back to and read over and over again. And his material isn't one of them.
Well, I'll definitely read those two by Napoleon Hill for sure.
Yeah, you'll like that. And the other thing is anything by Richard Koch is going to be great. He's got all this here is Richard right here. There, all that is Richard right there. And then, of course, all this is Hale and Stone. But anything by Richard's going to be great. And the reason is because he challenges your thinking and helps you kill the sacred cow.
Yeah.
So I like books that make me think. I don't like books that tell me what to do because generally it doesn't fit. Makes sense. If you and I are lifting, I'm 6 feet. You're 5'8".
Yeah.
5'8". Yeah. So my oldest son's 5'8". So I'm, and I have a longer torso and what have you. If you're gonna correct my form, I'm pretty sure you're gonna do it to my individual limitations and attributes, right? So I may not be as flexible in my hip flexors and be able to tip my knees to my chest when I'm doing leg press. So maybe I can. I don't know, right? But maybe you can and I can't. It'd be silly for you to push me to a level that you can do if I'm not physically designed that way. And so a lot of these books are trying to, make you into a mold that isn't appropriate for you. Rather, what you want to tell me is, hey, Marx, get your foot positioning like this and try to find the connection with the muscle, this muscle, feel this. I don't feel it. Keep changing. No, I feel it. Okay, great. That's your position. When you feel the muscle, that's your position. It might be different than yours. Same thing with bench or whatever exercise we're going to do, right? I might be really strong. You might be super strong on this and I can't do it. Who knows? But you want to tailor make it to me, right? I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have to inject insulin to my food. So I can't eat the way that you eat. I can eat the way that I eat with the same kind of foods. Books need to be that way. Books need to be like, hey, Robert, we know you're unique. So we're going to share principles that is now up to you to apply so that works for you. Any book that tells you, put you up with 45-degree angle, this and the other, may or may not hit the mark. So I read them, but I try to avoid doing anything from that part. I think Greene is kind of like that. I think he's, trying to put he's better at it now, but he's trying to put his take on the world, which is very cynical and negative, on you. I'm okay with the cynical and the negativity part. I'm not okay with forcing it on me. I'd much rather read a book that makes me think about certain things and to let me decide how to apply them.
Yeah. No, makes sense, man. Well, I'll definitely read those too. I enjoyed 80-20 Daily that you recommended quite a bit.
Richard's the man. I mean, Richard's great. And his other books are fantastic. If you want to read a great business book by him, it's called The Star Principle. Okay. That's how he made himself from 4 million pounds to 3 billion pounds in 20 some odd years, which means he's got a better record than Warren Buffett. He just started later, just by following and investing only in Star Principle and what's called Star Businesses, which he did not invent, by the way. But yeah, so I would do Jonathan Livingston Seagull for sure. Quick, easy read. Then Mastermind and Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And the reason is because Outwitting the Devil will give you a different perspective of society and the devil, which will help you with your business and also help you with your kids. And then Mastermind, because it shows you what a failure he was and what a success he was, but also the power of more than 2 brains together to solve a problem, which I think is
key.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
100%.
Anyway, but I know your battery's going to die. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate you, brother. I truly enjoy chatting with you. I learn something new each time. But we're going to do this podcast in person, so we'll just have to do that at a later date. But we'll have you out here. We'll grill some steaks. We'll get a lift in, and we'll make an experience of it.
You have a gym at your place?
Yeah. I got in the compound here. I got my commercial kitchen. I got my recording studio. Got the gym. Got everything here.
You know what you need in your compound? 2 things.
What's that?
A Tesla charger and a little house for guests.
Hey, I'm working on that, man. I'm working on it. It's going to happen. Maybe I haven't thought about the Tesla charger yet, but we'll get the housing situation figured out.
You get a Tesla charger, then I'm living there.
All right.
I mean, all right. Because we had it when we got there, it's like at 5%. It's like, okay, great, but then how do I get back?
That's true. A little bit of an issue there. Yeah, we'll make it happen, man. We'll make it happen.
You let me know, brother.
Appreciate you, Marx. Have a good one, brother.
Appreciate you. You too, man. Thank you.